Just letting everyone know, this video is split up into two parts for news this week. We took a break and came back, and then my audio ended up being really low, so I'm going to put that one up separately. Thanks. Hi everyone, welcome to Third Coast Gaming Radio. My name's Travis, and we are at episode 36. Some gaming news. I'm joined by the other host, the host with the most, Austin Taylor. Hello. Could be anything. You could have the most video games, Austin. Who knows? Okay. Well, you have the most cool. There you go. That's a compliment. Could be. How about delightful sarcasm? I like Austin's delightful sarcasm. Yeah. But only the delightful sarcasm, not the angry sarcasm. See, there's a difference. But I've never seen that before. I don't know. What? Podcast chatter. How's it going? Hello. Big news week. It's Monday. This Tom Clancy thing came out. It's a... They kind of showed off some gameplay for it yesterday. I think I caught it on Twitter. I think IGN posted it.
Yeah, like 30 seconds.
Yeah, it was a little like... FP... People were like, oh, this is kind of Call of Duty and little free-to-play. Yeah, XDefiant is the name. Weird name. I internally have a joke where I'm like, oh yeah, it's an edgy PSN name. XDefiant 93X is free to play.
Yeah, it is. It's like this naming convention is just the most like 90s, like early 2000s nonsense.
It's also very close to being similar sounding to Valorant, both NT endings, which I thought of because there's a Valorant ad playing on this GameSpot article. I think this game looks cool. This game's throwing out some hero vibes and the free-to-play stuff, and it's got like characters from Splinter Cell, Ghost Recon, and The Division, which is like, okay, sure, cross-world stuff. It's not another Splinter Cell game, but it's like something that we have talked about where I just want a free-to-play multiplayer shooter that you can respawn in. So, cool.
I mean, it's absolutely like one of the most boring things I've seen recently. I would have to say, like, I don't think the aesthetic of the Clancy verse lends itself to this kind of game very well. And based off of the characters that they seem to have made, I feel like I've been proven right in that assumption. I don't know. It doesn't look interesting. The gameplay that they've shown isn't like particularly unique, and quite frankly, I don't know if I even have I don't think I have necessarily the time or desire to see another one of these.
It's like I guess I'm on the opposite end where I'm curious if the shooting will hold up, but I really like the aesthetics of this. I think what was shown in the trailer looks early. I don't think that fidelity is there because I guess they're trying to hit a lot of different consoles or PCs to run this. But when they started showing like the Division stuff, like they started throwing gadgets from the Division, and they had the squad of, like, I guess these are bad guys from the Division. They're the firefighter groups.
The cleaners.
The cleaners. Yeah, the assault type, access to flamethrowers. And I just saw like stuff coming out from the Division. I was like, oh, I played a lot of Division. I could mess with this. I like where it's going, but I think that's just like a difference in like, I'm pretty easygoing. I can play a lot of different shooters, and I might not stick around with this that long, but I could definitely try it because it's free and it might end up hooking me. I don't know. I also like Overwatch a lot. I think that's something that translates a little to why I might enjoy this.
Sure, and I mean we'll get to messing around with it soon enough. Their beta's in August, yeah, live on August 5th.
Yeah.
I certainly don't think I'm gonna put any real time into this because it just like the thing I was missing in like hero shooters was not like, man, I wish everyone looked boring as hell.
Yeah, they definitely just are sticking with like these characters are like decked out militia kind of people or from like the Tom Clancy universe, which can be a little samey. And oh, here, yeah, it's saying. So I watched the trailer and it looked like it was a 4v4 game, but according to GameSpot, it's going to be a 6v6
6v6. Yep.
shooter. I'm I'm hoping it doesn't keep the Counter Strike and Valorant thing where you only have one life and you have like a it's like round based. I hope they have a mode like that, but I also hope they just have like a team deathmatch mode and like a capture the flag mode, or maybe like a trying to think what like the pushing the payload and Overwatch is like I enjoy that mode thoroughly. I like objective based stuff.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what they like actually play around with once they decide to release the beta. As of right now, they just kind of showed us its aesthetic and their attempt to make this kind of a punk shooter that also just seems to, based off the 30
Yeah.
seconds of like footage we've seen, plays like every other shooter. This isn't like a Gotham
Oh, City
Imposters?
Imposters. Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember that. That was
yeah.
interesting.
There's nothing like particularly like interesting looking about the way that the game plays at first glance.
No, and I hope I don't. They didn't really say who was making this. I'm sure to
This is
internal Ubisoft.
Ubisoft San Francisco.
What else have they done before this? Because I'm curious how the what the engine is like and stuff, and what their like background is. Because like I would say like Call of Duty Modern Warfare, like that was that 2018 or 2019, like the reboot of that franchise, looks like Call of Duty, but man, that game was a blast for me, and I think just like that game stuck to its it's just modern shooting, but the shooting pushed it past to like a unique art style, which maybe I'll mesh with the art style. Maybe it's just these, it's got a couple of the like Ubisoft franchise, like Tom Clancy franchise stuff in it. But like, the Echelon dudes, they're just some Tom Clancy looking guys. And then I guess they're the wolves from Breakpoint are tank type and they deploy shields and have a heavy weapon, like the Team Fortress heavy to compare it. I don't know. We'll see. I'm curious. At first glance, I'm mostly into it because it's free to. If it wasn't free to play, I wouldn't be as interested in this. I'd be like, oh, this is a game I would get when it's on sale for $20, or if some friends, like if I knew a bunch of people who picked it up, because I think in my circle at the time we were all playing Breakpoint and Division, and then all kind of bounced off and went separately and started playing more single player stuff. So I don't know. I'm curious what like this could end up being.
Yeah, I mean I don't know, man. It'll certainly be something. If nothing else, like this could like even if this like specific title doesn't go anywhere, this could be a blueprint for how to do like other sort of styles of this game, like types of this game, like for this studio later. I don't know if like especially because this is a Tom Clancy title, right? Is being sold as a Tom Clancy title. I don't know if that's gonna help it or hinder it in the long run, considering what people like want out of Tom Clancy games.
Yeah, I feel like there's a thought I had where if this was like a Ubisoft first person shooter where at some point they were putting in like Watch Dogs characters, and I don't know, what if you just gave Ezio a gun? It'd be a dumb idea, but it's like a Ubisoft team based shooter. That could be interesting too, where you're just pulling in weird people. But they have it. There's a certain way, them sticking with Tom Clancy stuff. I'm sure if this turns into like a Siege thing, we could maybe Siege characters will show up. Maybe we'll get like Ghost Recon Future War characters. I think that's what that game was called, and all those like advanced soldier stuff. Who knows? But yeah, it's It's an announcement. There's a beta coming in August. Who knows? There's some. I think a couple people have played it. Curious on waiting and seeing. I think I'm more interested. There's this other. The next story we got is the Steam Deck stuff was kind of starting to show up on July 16th. It looks like 2 or 3 days ago. I'm way more sold on. I think this is a really smart move by Steam and Valve in general. It's cool. Would you, if you had normal funds, would you pick? You're a PC player more than me. Would you pick this up?
So just sort of break down. This is Valve's like answer to the Nintendo Switch. This is their mobile. It's just being sold like marketed as like a mobile PC essentially. It's Linux based, using a modified version of SteamOS, and should be able to run games and like on the equivalent of like slightly above like a like PlayStation 4 Pro and like Xbox One. Um, you were asking me if I would pick this up?
Yeah, if you had like a normal disposable income, is this something that's like you have an okay Steam library? I think from what it sounds like.
Like, I mean, no, I don't. I don't particularly trust Valve with like its more experimental hardware. They have like a long history of like making these things, selling them for a bit, and then just at some point abandoning them. We've seen this with like, the Steam box, and one could argue that that was just not the right time to make that type of thing. You have the same thing with like peripherals like the Steam Link, which is the device that you plug into your PC and you can stream like your gameplay to your TV and you can play it at your TV. I also need to see like what this thing looks like a couple of months after launch because like immediately what's off-putting about this to me is that it's huge. It's a huge little handheld, like significantly bigger than like the Switch Lite I use. Its button like sort of layout is really weird. The B button in its face buttons is like hanging off the edge of the right side in a really weird way. And the other thing here is like the base model, which is like $400, only has like 64 gigabytes of storage, and that's not a lot for like a PC games library. And now you can upgrade your storage using micro SDs, right? But like those are not going to like take advantage of the fact that you also have an SSD in the system, right? So if you want an SSD that you can really use to store games, you need to pony up a lot more money. And the other thing here is, I think the thing I'd be most interested with in this handheld is playing like my itch library. And I have no idea if the SteamOS being like Linux based is going to, like they say you can do it, right? You can install things like the Epic Game Store. You can install um, and browse like itch and such, but I have absolutely no idea how that kind of thing is going to run on this system.
Yeah, that'd be curious too because I was looking at this and I was like, oh, is this just Steam? I wonder if you can get to the other stuff too. And then the other point I was looking at is there's like an article talking about that they wanted to have the lowest end be the $399 to make it, quote, like accessible to more people to get it. It's only got 64 gigs of storage, which that's probably 2 modern games now, or a lot of indie games, which at some point you can upgrade it with, like, you can upgrade the storage.
Yeah,
but
with a micro SD.
Yeah, but not an
like
SSD storage, which
yeah.
is a little rougher. But they do have that 512 and that the 256 and 512 gigabyte versions are both SSD, which I guess I would say that's like the version people who have money and want to use this to like a bigger capacity will get because you have that SSD storage. I think the coolest for me, I was originally seeing this, I thought it was just going to be a handheld, but you can have this docked and plugged into a monitor with HDMI and play your games off of that. So there's also this interesting market of people who, oh, this is a PC that you're plugging in that you can also take portable and you can just load into these games, which I thought would be like, that's an interesting sell point to me. Like I think about PC games and I'm like, if I didn't have a PC and I just had something like a laptop, I feel like I could mess with that. It's still $529 for like the version I would want to get, which is the 256 gigabyte
Yeah.
SSD.
Yeah, I mean, it is important that you, I would say, like, it is a very smart move that you can kind of dock this and use it like a traditional desktop, especially as we sort of look into, as we continue to be stuck in the situation where crypto miners are gobbling up GPU inventories, right? Like being able to have that kind of functionality with this system and like its customized parts and infrastructure is I think a really smart move on their part.
And that's like, speaking about like the shortage on parts and stuff, that's probably where the size of this console comes up, is because there's some hardware in this. Like you said, it's close to like a PS4 Pro, and you said the other one was like an Xbox One X, right?
Yeah, like it's on that, not like the series, but like yeah, like Xbox One, like PS4 Pro, like sort of a little bit better than those is like what I've understood from IGN's coverage.
Which I would say that already, like when the Switch came out, the hardware stuff was showing that the Switch was more like a base PS4 amount of power, which, the Switch will come out with their upgraded, like better tech version later. But I just think it's interesting that this is a PS4 Pro and such close to it. We're talking, it's not exactly the same. It's got a screen. Who knows what, I haven't looked at the parts list yet for this. It's interesting. It's big. It's a weird decision to have those two touchpads where they are instead of having them like a traditional controller where the D-pad and the face buttons should be right there instead, and that the analog sticks are raised. Like there's another controller where the analog sticks were raised like that, and I thought it was very strange where they were like above those buttons.
Yeah, there's the other thing is like there are just a lot of buttons on this thing. Like the front of this has the two analog sticks, the track pads that I guess you can use. You can just um use like with the analog sticks or like use instead of is kind of the idea there. Um, then like on the others, and then you have the face buttons right next to the right analog stick and the D-pad next to the left. And then like on the back you have like four other buttons to assign.
Yeah.
It's just like they want this to kind of be like they want to serve the purpose of like a full like keyboard and mouse is what they're really like pushing
Yeah.
with this,
You know,
which is interesting.
the thing I'm curious about, I wonder if it has like Bluetooth support for like you just throwing this on a kickstand and getting like, if I own an Xbox, maybe I could hook up my Xbox controller to this and have it on a kickstand as just like another choice, not as like a replacement for like the way this controller is set up. And then I think about the Steam controller a little bit too, because they had those mouse like buttons like in the middle there for a whatchamacallit, for like a right analog stick and for a D-pad, which I haven't heard about the Steam controller in a bit, but I think they still sell it. Yeah.
They probably do. I think it's.
Yeah.
I've never used one.
It's
Let's
6 years
see. As
ago
far as
when that came
controllers,
out.
yeah.
Um.
Um.
Anyway.
Yeah. So any controller, like you can use. And this is like in the interview with the designers of this that IGN had. You can use any controller that can be plugged in via USB and anything that can be plugged in or accessed via Bluetooth on
Yeah.
the deck.
I think you're like, what I would say is like the reluctancy to like trust Valve is very like true, because yeah, if something doesn't work with them, they usually will drop it and continue the thing they're doing. And it's hard with that because you want to sell this to someone. Sometimes you have to have like a year of stuff set up for it before people get, people wait sometimes a year or two to get into something. And if it's not selling as well as it should be, within that first year, they might choose not to support it. Or like, what's the Steam headset that is it
The
the
VR headset?
Index?
Yeah, the Index.
I think they support it enough, but that's a different thing where, VR games are, you have to specifically design it to be in VR, and then there's a whole thing on that, but I don't know. I'm curious how this will go. It's a cool idea. It's got this massive library. Like, I was talking to one of my coworkers, and he loves, he's got such a massive Steam library, and he'd be like, yeah, I'd probably mess with this if I hadn't, the extra money for it, or if, I wanted to take my library on the go somewhere and plug it into a TV and have some stuff downloaded already. Like, it's a good option for like portable gaming too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like if I had, any real assurance that like when this thing comes out it's gonna work, I would love to like sit with it and put like Baldur's Gate 3 on this, right? And just mess around with that on the go. Like that would be fun.
Yeah, and I'm curious how the like how hot this thing is going to get as well, because there's a, like you
Oh
said, there's a
yeah.
pretty big thing in there. I think those are two speakers on the front, not fans, but I'm curious how the cooling is going to be, and then what like the how the battery, like, can you change the battery on this? Like, if I have this for a while and I charge it like not optimally, can I change the battery out when I want to? Um, so is this thing they're showing off? These are production models, right? Not just like a CGI thing of it. I'm sure they're like some
Yeah,
test
they're not
stuff.
like, they made sure to disclose in the covers that they are not final models, but they are um they have like they were like producing, like they're not CG models, is what I'm trying
Yeah.
to say.
I'm looking at some of these pictures. It's not as thick as I thought it was. I thought it would be a little like chunkier, like one of those like learning pad things, but it looks like it's about as thin, like at least where the monitor is in the middle. It looks like it's about as thin as a Switch, or maybe a little wider. But then you have those like grooves that come out for the two triggers, like the PS2 R2 and L2, that kind of
Yeah.
come out a little bit. But yeah, I would have to touch. I would you'd have to put it in stores and let people hold it. That's like a big thing too. Like at a Best Buy, just be like, is this something that I can mesh with and like hold without it like straining your wrists or your hands? Who knows?
Yeah.
It's cool. I heard it's selling out already on Steam. It's kind of
Oh,
you
of
know
course.
it just came out. There's some queues for it. We'll see if it keeps going after the Switch. The thing is, the biggest idea for me for this has been that Nintendo has sold people on the idea of a handheld that's like this, that you can dock and plug in. And people know what this is. Like, if Valve had put this out and there was like no Switch, people would be like, oh, do I want a portable I can plug in? Why wouldn't I just play it here? Or why wouldn't I just get it separately? But it's like kind of a known idea. We just have to see if Valve keeps up with it. We have to see if they support it. Like that, I think that is a really big thing that you brought up. So we'll see. News.
Yeah. I just think like right now, I imagine like these you can queue up to pre-order it, right, on Steam right now for $5. And that's not even like you put $5 towards this machine, you put $5 to get yourself a spot in line to pre-order it, and it seems wild.
Yeah.
And it's not even, and like the expected order delivery for this, like this is still years out, like the expected, or a year out at least. The expected order availability here is like on the Steam page is Q2 2022.
Yeah. So
Right, so we
like
got
the
we got a
Switch Pro
while.
might be out already by then. Who knows?
Maybe.
Who knows? I'm just spitballing. What else is on here? I had. Oh yeah, they're gonna have some faceplates for it too, aren't they? Oh no, this is the Stream Deck was also announced like around the same time. The Elgato Stream Deck, which I thought was really
Yeah, another
funny.
another
Little
one.
joke article. Yeah. Oh guys, no, but eh, I need a Stream Deck at some point, but that's like a side thought for me. Apex Legends got a character trailer for. It looks like the character's name is Seer. They're African descent, little cowboy vibes. People pointed out the thickness of the booty on this Twitter post for this Polygon article, and it was a cool little character trailer. I'm curious how they'll play, what the abilities will be. Always fun. You know, there's always this nice little community around when Apex announces characters of people like being out there talking about them and gushing over them and stuff.
Yeah, it's a really cool design for a character at first glance. It also like is coinciding with like the next season, which is Emergence, which is coming out on the 3rd of August, it seems. And like he looks like a really like cool addition to this roster, I will say. Like we don't know much about how this this legend will operate. It seems to be with micro drones and an artist's eye. So
Damn.
no idea what that means yet, but
Yeah.
we're gonna find out soon.
And that
Um,
cinematic trailer was cool. It was by one of the artists who worked on Tron Uprising, which was like the Disney Plus TV show for like a Tron prequel and some other shows. And that trailer was pretty cool too. I was digging it.
yeah, it's a cool like 2 minute bit. I imagine they're gonna do like an extended trailer like once this season drops, and I'm sure people will go nuts for it.
Yeah, it seems neat. Speaking of other hero shooters, did you catch this Gundam Evolution like PC trailer?
I tried not to, but I know too many people who follow Gundam shit.
Yeah, it's also a 6v6 game with two players and class based, and it it could be PC only, it could be Japan only, but the Bandai was like, "Hey, we want to get into competitive gaming," so they also did a hero shooter, and I am also excited for this, but in for vastly like stupider reasons than like the Tom Clancy thing. But also like I think the art style, they have their art style. It's Gundam. You know, you see these models of these characters and they look like the
Yeah,
characters. But also I want
they're all.
people to be like, "Why did you pick the Gelgoog? He sucks. You should be the new Gundam. Come on."
Well, I mean, they got the Iron-Blooded Orphans Gundam in here.
Yeah, how do you pronounce that? Cuz I can't
Bardabos, I
Bardabos.
think.
I think you got it. I used to say Bard blah blah blah. Oh, there's a Sazabi in here. Cool. You can go third person with the Sazabi. Got him.
Yeah,
Man.
I don't know. This isn't like it doesn't seem that interesting, I gotta say. Like you're doing a lot of like it looks like a very normal hero shooter, but with Gundam, and I don't think that's with this IP specifically. I don't think that's interesting.
I think Japan would probably eat this shit up more than we would because of how like much like Gundam is in their culture. That's like I'm trying to think of like the biggest franchise they could. That's like if Marvel made an Overwatch game. Like even though like I wouldn't be as hyped for it. I could see there being a market for that. Like a free to play. If this is free to play and it's Gundam and um yeah, it's doing the same stuff that Overwatch is doing. Is you're peeking corners and you're sniping and you have some characters who have like rockets, some tankier stuff. You have your abilities and your cooldowns. I generally have been enjoying that type of stuff, but like as we've seen, there's a lot of people who are trying to get into this market, and they all similarly are kind of doing the same thing.
I mean,
I'm hoping it'll come to console and be free at some point, but we'll see.
the thing is like I understand why the Tom Clancy hero shooter looks so dull, right? Like that the aesthetic of Tom Clancy is just military. It's just military shooter. With how Ubisoft has handled that, I guess IP or universe, whatever. But like this is Gundam. This is like these robots fight in space a lot, And like right now what you're showing me is robots sliding around really uninteresting looking stages that don't have any real character to them.
No, it looks like the white base or like the some. asteroid that has like a facility on it. You know,
Yeah, like it looks like a testing facility for Gundam
yeah, and you're talking
more
about
than anything.
style, and I just watched Gundam Hathaway, and that animation is so beautiful, and I don't think this at all shows off how like beautiful those are because it's just regular, very they're very well rendered models. They're very detailed and graphically are up to par, but they're not like what I would say is like beautiful like the animation like Gundam animation can be at points.
Well, you're never gonna get a Gundam game that like looks as good as something like Hathaway. Like to make
Yeah.
something like that in a game would be at an insane cost.
Yeah, and I know there are some like games that have like a lot of that do have style, even though they're just video games. Like Persona's got some style to like some of its stuff. I'm trying to think of character model style or like Fury has like an interesting like comic book style as like the way you're attacking stuff. But yeah, this is kind of trying to do kind of base level hero shooter. We got these models here. Maybe we'll see. You remember when Fortnite went from like 1.0 to 2.0 and that I feel like they turned the charm up a little better. I feel like
Yeah.
they need to hit that charm knob and just crank it up a little. It'd probably be more interesting. But right now they're at like, 2 or 3 right now.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see more as like this comes out, but it's just like right now, like that trailer specifically is it seems like a generic hero shooter, which is a bummer for like specifically like this IP. Because like when I see Gundam games come, because we don't get a whole lot of those anymore, is my
No,
understanding.
like the
Like when I see
PS3 we saw
Gundam,
'em. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, like when I see them come out, like I want to be excited for these because like mech video games are like very cool to me.
Yeah, like the most recent one was like there was that. It might have been like a 3v3 Gundam game that's like Gundam Breaker, I think, where it's like the arcade game but on consoles where you're just doing these fast matches where you're trying to outmaneuver other pilots and stuff. And then before that was like Gundam Battle Assault or something. I can't remember all the. There's a couple PS4 Gundam games, but they're not breaking any mold anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, Battle
Yeah.
Operation 2, Gundam versus, and what is this other one? It was like Gundam Extreme versus Maxi or something. I don't know. I wanted to get into Battle Operation 2 because it seemed like it was interesting, but it was free. But you know, yeah, that's like the 3v3 one. It kind of reminds me of. Did you ever play multiplayer for like an Armored Core 5 or something like that?
I don't think I never really had a chance to hit Armored Core.
Yeah, so those games like PvP were like 5 on 5 with one life, and they were very interesting because you were managing like your flight system, and you had like a rock paper scissors of 3 different ammo types that if you saw someone's like mech and could think about what kind of armor it had, you could guess what to shoot at it to take it out faster, and it was this weird positioning 5v5 thing. I think that would be like a more interesting Gundam thing, which I don't know if Battle Operation 2 touches that too much, but dude, like, From Software put some shit into those Armored Core games back in the day. Anyway,
One day it'll be back.
one day we'll have another mech From Software game. I think they had some tease about there was like a mech concept art for a From game, if you know what I'm talking about. I don't know if it rings a bell.
Probably not.
Yeah, it's all right. I threw this on here because I always like hearing about it. Is that Warframe is getting some crossplay and some cross save? It's in development right now. They kind of announced that at TennoCon 2021 along with their trailer for their new update and stuff. I don't play Warframe, but I'm happy for the people who do, and that seems like a good thing to do for people who continually play that and stuff.
I always forget that this game's just like really popular. Yeah, I think like I didn't like I played Warframe a bit on PS4, and I never messed with it when I got to PC, mostly because I didn't want to start over again. Um, and I don't think it's gonna get me back in at this point, but this would have been nice to have when I sort of also got into PC gaming, and probably would have kept me on that game for a couple more months, if nothing else. And so this is like cool to see them like having the resources to get this worked on.
Yeah, and I will say like I like Warframe to an extent to where if like I just want to play some stuff with some friends and we don't all have the same games, we can kind of hop on here and do a couple planets and maybe bounce at some point. It's a little rigid about like what you should be doing, but if you have someone who knows what they're doing, like I had an okay time with someone what as they say for these is like shepherding you through it. So someone queued up the planets and we went out and shot some stuff. And you jumping around that game, I forget how like fun it is to like vault and double jump and glide and like be John Woo shooting people like while you're like dodging to the left and right and stuff. But like you said, it's hard for me to think about coming back to this when I've got other stuff to play too. Hey everyone, Travis here. That was part 1, and part 2 will be up as a separate video and maybe as a full video. Alright, thank you everybody. Have a good one. Bye.